Do you ever feel like you'd often hear this, that maybe the team is lacking a bit of steel, and that's something you would have provided? Of course, you're not there now, but do you think the steel is an issue?
I don't think so. Look, I think there's plenty of guys inside there with that steel. You look at, even someone like Sean O'Shea or someone like that. He's well, to me, I suppose I consider him a young fella, but he's matured a lot over the last 3 years. But like I would, see him as someone who's a lot of steel. If you go into the back line, Jason Foley, Tom Sullivan, Tyke Morley, they've all progressed hugely over the past 3 years. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a lack of steel. Maybe some guys need to bring a bit more, physicality or that bit of nastiness into their game. But it's nearly something that's in you or it isn't. And would it have contributed to Kerry getting over the line in those games? Possibly, but it's hard to know. But I think it's more just that little bit of nous as opposed to the steeliness that would make the difference.
Do you think you were kind of in an impossible situation with, the Tyrone COVID thing last year, that if you forced the game to go ahead and you won, there'd be slings and arrows going your way for that. And obviously the way it panned out, you lost. So everyone was like, look, I mean, that was the reason that Tyrone had extra time and maybe they were getting players back from injury and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. You were in a bit of a no-win situation, but do you think you were the victims of how it played out?
I think our attitude around that time was, look, we, wherever they want to play it and whenever they want to play it, we're fine with that because we felt we were good enough to do it. And we obviously needed to play the semi-final. It had been a bit of a gap, I think, between that and our previous game. And I think we played Cork in the Munster final and beaten them quite convincingly. So we needed that game really if we were going to go into a final. Look, it gave us an extra 2 weeks, of course, and there's always a bit of disappointment, I suppose, when something like that happens too much, but you just have to reset and focus your mind to 2 weeks later, or I think it was delayed by 2 weeks. So it obviously worked in their advantage, but at the same time, we were both there on the day. We felt we were in a good place, so did they, obviously, and they beat us in the story. So we just they were the better team on the day, and you just have to accept that and move on.
And were you frustrated with the lack of information coming out of their camp? Because anytime they were asked about, well, how many players exactly, or any sort of detail, they'd almost, I was there for some of the press conferences. They were getting very touchy about it. There wasn't information coming, and it was as if you were questioning their honour or whatever. But did you find that frustrating?
You would, I suppose, but you try not to get caught up in it because it wasn't something that we could control. The administrators or whatever had to deal with that, and we just had to get on with it. It was an extraordinary time, obviously, with COVID, and people can be sensitive about that type of information anyway. So, again, we didn't get caught up in it too much. We just had to get on with it and get ourselves ready for the semi-final.